I was BGSF 2.
Yes.
So I had done about 2.5 years as the Brigadier General Staff of 2 Corps, Chandi Mandir, near Chandigarh, one of the best cantonments of the Indian Army at that time. And my turn came for being promoted to Major General
Okay.
from Brigadier. So I got a call from my first commanding officer of 16 Cavalry when I joined as a second lieutenant, General Har Prasad. And he, at that time, was the Adjutant General of the Indian Army. So he said, he was a Lieutenant General, and he said that your turn for posting has come, and I want you to go to Ahmednagar, that is the Armored Corps Center and School, in it's about 75, we have 150 kilometers from Pune, in Maharashtra. The Armored Corps Center and School, because it's not in good shape, and I want a man like you to be there to sort it out. So I told General HV, I said, look, I don't want to go to a training institution and sort it out. Anybody can do that. I first have to command a division, if I may be permitted to do so. So he said, all right, but then it's your turn to be promoted. And if you want to command a division, nothing is available at the moment. So you'll have to wait for another few months. And somebody junior to you will be posted as Major General. I said, fine, that's okay by me. So as it happened, I picked up the command by about the middle of 1980. And I was posted to 17 Mountain Division in Sikkim, facing the Tibetan Plateau, right? And I took over from Major General Baman Irani,
Okay.
who, if you recollect, I had earlier told you, when I was in the Staff College as a Lieutenant Colonel and was posted as a full colonel to the 1st Armored Division for the 1971 war, I actually took over from Baman Irani. And now he was commanding the division in Sikkim, and I took over from him again. And he went to Ahmednagar to command the Armored Corps Central. So this is known as the Black Cat Division, and I'm wearing the tie. It's a black cat. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, actual black cat it is.
It's a black cat with its tail up. Now, we are the only division in the Indian Army which has a billy
I know.
as its formation sign which you wear here.
Oh.
So people used to ask,
Yeah.
whereby the various divisions of the Indian Army, somebody's got a tiger, somebody's got an attacking eagle, somebody's got a charging elephant, right? Or a charging rhinoceros, something aggressive. So how is it that this division has a building, that also a black one? So I looked into this, and I think this division was raised during World War II by Major General Pat Rees, British Indian Army, for the advance of 15th Corps under then Lieutenant General William Slim, Bill Slim, who later became a field marshal and also the Governor General of Australia. He was given the command of this 15 Corps, which has 3 V figures, Roman 15, posted to retake Burma from the Japanese. The Japanese had conquered Burma and they had come into Manipur. So he did that attack and reached the Irrawaddy and then went very fast. I told you this earlier because my old regiment, 16 Cavalry, under Lieutenant Colonel J N Chaudhary, who later became the Army Chief, was the leading regiment of this corps. But the leading division of this corps was the Black Cat Division, commanded by Pete Rees. He's a very interesting man. I looked into his history. And he decided on the Black Cat, probably because firstly it's black, and it is bad luck
Yeah.
for anybody in whose path this black cat crosses. The cat also has 9 lives, I'm told. And therefore, though the division had serious casualties, but it came back into the field very fast. So it does have many lives. Now it's the 17 Mountain Division, and it was the division commanded by a fellow Rimkorian much senior to me, General Uni Kende, who became an army commander later. Uni Kende led this division for the Goa operations, 1962 or thereabout, when the Indian army went into Goa to take it back from the Portuguese. This was the division which led it. Now it was positioned as a mountain division in Gangtok, in the headquarters in Sikkim, and it had 3 brigades. One brigade, a brigade, as you know, is commanded by a brigadier, has about 3 battalions in it, plus artillery, etc. One battalion was in the Sevok Road area, that is in the North Bengal Plains. You must be knowing that area. You know, it is east of Siliguri, Sevok Road, and from there the roads go up into Sikkim. There's also a road that goes up to Bhutan. So then there's another brigade which was in Gangtok itself. And the 3rd brigade was in the high altitude area of Sikkim, mountainous areas about over 12,000 feet, which was the great Himalayan range, which is in North Sikkim. Now, this is a fascinating geography and a lovely people. As far as the people of Sikkim are concerned, the old kings were Bhutia from Tibet. There are 2 tribes of Tibetans there, the Lepcha and the Bhutia. The Bhutias are, you know, there are 3 types of Tibetan Buddhism, red hat and yellow hat and whatever. So these were the followers of the Karmapa Lama. The Karmapa Lama, the old Karmapa Lama, the original Karmapa Lama, who became a great friend of mine, or rather I became a great friend of his, was located at a place called Rumte, Monastery, which is near Gangtok. Have you been to Sikkim?
Yes.
Have you been to Rumte?
Yes.
It is now looked after by a Rinpoche, who is like a stand-in guy, but he's not the top lama. So there are 3 top lamas in Tibet. The Dalai Lama is a temporal head. You know, he's a king, plus he's also a religious head. But the others are all only religious heads. And so Karmapa Lama was located in Rumtek, and we had great pleasure, both my wife and my children and myself, to be introduced there and go and visit him at least once or twice a month.
Okay.
In Gangtok, there was a little problem going on when I reached in 1980. The king of Sikkim was a man who's known as the Chogyal. Chogyal is the king. So now, a little earlier, when I was commanding the brigade in Mizoram, that's 2 or 3 years earlier before I came, I think it was 1976, when Indira Gandhi decided that Bhutan, or rather that Sikkim, being ruled by a king and not a democratic state under India is not acceptable.
Okay.
So she wanted to introduce what is known as democracy in Sikkim. So democracy, when it's introduced, it's, you won't believe it, but introduced with the danda, the stick.
Okay.
What she did was that she built up relationships with a large number of Nepalese who have infiltrated from Nepal into North Bengal, and from North Bengal to Kalimpong and to Sikkim, right? Darjeeling, Kalimpong, and Sikkim. So she selected somebody there, a person called Nar Bahadur Bhandari, who she said should have an election. And Nar Bahadur Bhandari, because the Nepalese were in majority. Reason is that the Nepalese had many children, and the Bhutias and Lepchas don't.
Right, right.
This is a position when you talk of demography in the world. Take the Western nations now, Europe, Britain, France, the Norwegian, the Scandinavian countries, Germany, they're short of children. So they are importing labor to run the country, to run the cities. clean the cities, drive buses, drive trains, etc. Who does all this? So they are importing Muslim Turks, for instance, in Germany, and in Norway and Sweden, and also Algerians into France. Which is that the demographic uh, quotient of these countries is rapidly becoming in favor of the large number of children that the Muslims are having vis-a-vis the white man.
Right.
In fact, the Muslims say the white man in a couple of centuries will disappear from there. They'll all be Muslim, right? So you have to encourage all your children to have plenty of children. Yes. Many people don't believe that, but I think that's the way to go. So the Bhutias and Lepchas, though he's the king, was overcome in the election because Nand Bahadur Bhandari won the election, became a chief minister. Then Indira Gandhi posted there a very good man called B.B. Lal as the lieutenant governor of Sikkim, who was the ipso facto ruler with the Nand Bahadur Bhandari and his cabinet running the state. See? So the Chogyal was outflanked. Now, how this was done was that the then brigade commander of 268 Brigade, as you know, I forget the name, 114 Brigade, I think it is, which was in Sabok Road in Bengal, was a friend of mine called Dipinder Singh. Now, Dipinder Singh retired as an army commander in Southern Command and had been the MA to General and then later Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. A very fine officer, he's a Sardar and good friend. He was commanding the brigade and he was instructed to occupy the palace of the Chogyal by surprise
Okay.
and to disarm the Chogyal's personal guard, which is about a regiment's worth of a battalion's worth of Sikkim guards, you see. And funnily enough, Dipinder Singh was a very good friend of Mr. P.T. Namgyal, who was the Chogyal. And he used to go play bridge with him. So, on the business of coming to play bridge with him, he arrived inside the palace, and then his escorts and others who had come with him slowly disarmed the Sikkim guards, and the fate accomplished. India took over as a democracy from the Chogyal without a single bullet being fired. Anyway, after that, the Chogyal was sort of a persona non grata because the politics, politics is a funny thing. It's all lies, by the way. Whatever politics you are hearing about the Ukraine and Russian war, or about, for that matter, the various parties in India who are now sweating for going to an election in 2024, a lot of lies being said on all sides. So you have to be sharp enough to read newspapers between the lines and understand what's really going on, right? That's if you're interested. Otherwise, you wait for fate to show you what happened, and that you will only see when it actually happens.
Right.
So, Chogyal was persona non grata because the government was saying that he is in relationship with the Chinese in Tibet because he's feeling peeved about having been removed from his kingship. See? So, the hukam was that military officers should not have friendly relations with the Chogyal or the ex-king. Now, I don't believe in all this. I believe that human beings have to be friends, no matter whether they are the enemy or whether they are others. We have to be friends because basically, according to our Shastras anyway, we are all brothers and sisters. Vasudevaya Kutumbukum. Right? That's a great thought. And I also quoted to you earlier the 10 commandments that Moses brought, was acceptable both by the Jews, the Christians, as well as the Islamic nations. Baba Musa, he brought 10 commandments. And one of those commandments was, love thy enemy as thyself. But they don't follow it, right? So when I was a full colonel, I was a brigadier, and I had to now put on my major general's rank, which was I could not do till I took over my division. So I went to Calcutta, which is the army commander controlling Sikkim. And I arrived there in 1980, and I had a lot of friends there. And I let it be known that I'm going to Sikkim to command the division as per government orders. And I would like to call on the army commander to pay my respects. The army commander is a person called Eric Voss. Now, Eric Voss, I'll tell you a bit about. He's a Guyanese officer, very brilliant in the head. And he was commanding a division called 12 Division Rajasthan, facing the Pakistan border, Jodhpur and Jaisalmer and all those areas. And having commanded that successfully, he was ordered by government to raise the higher command course in Mao. Higher command course is in those days, was to be the highest training for lieutenant colonels who had commanded their units and were sweating to become brigadiers. They could be detailed by a military secretary's branch to do the higher command course. We wanted this above the staff college. The staff college was a major level course. This was a lieutenant colonel level course to have commanded units. So to get that going, he came to staff college and gave us a talk. And we were very impressed with him. And then he spoke to the directing staff. I was also a directing staff at that time. And he said, I'm going to take about 20 directing staff from the staff college to Mao to help me start the high command course. So a number of our colleagues who were directing staff were ordered by Government of India to move to Mao for the higher command course. I did not go because I was too senior. They said that everybody up to commission 1954 or beyond would be going. Since I was commissioned in 1950 and I was a superseded officer, so I was considered too old to be taken by Eric Voss, and very grateful for that because I preferred to stay where I was. Because as I told you when I was in the staff quarters, I was trying to do a lot of changes in our thinking on military tactics and strategy. Anyway, so Eric Voss started the higher command course, which later in the College of Combat I commanded when I was a lieutenant general. I'll tell you about that later. So I knew him from then. And so when I called on him, he's a very nice man, a very charming lady with his wife, and had a drink with him in the evening in the command house in Calcutta. And I said, I'm going to take over this Sikkim division, and do you have any guidance that you would like to give me? He said, no, you go ahead and take over, but follow the government orders. The government orders are that you have to maintain your distance from the Chogyar and keep your nose clean because, you don't want to get on the wrong side of politics. Otherwise, your career will be cut short. So I said, but what do you really think about this so-called order that we have to keep the Chogyar at arm's length? He said, I don't agree with it, but I'm a soldier and I obey orders. And he says, I'm a personal friend of the Chogyar. Because as an army commander, he had visited there, called on P.T. Namgyal before this order was passed. So he says, but it's up to you. I mean, you're going to command the division, and whatever you do is either a plus factor for your future career or a negative factor. So I said, look, if your personal view is not antagonistic, I don't agree with all this business. I don't agree with political orders that you can't call on someone, you can't make somebody your friend. I'm going to do exactly that. He said, well, fine. If you buy it, you buy it. I said, fine. So, but I said, you're not bothered with it. No, I'm not bothered. He was my boss. So I landed up in Gangtok. Now I had to have a ADC. Now, AD camp is an old style from the ancient armies that a major general and upwards is authorized by the government of AD camp, an ADC, a young officer, a captain maybe, or a lieutenant, who is his, what should I say, he looks after the general in minor administration, looks after his staff, looks after his home affairs, looks after his fleet of military vehicles and so on, and also assists him in any job that he wants done.
Okay.
So I wanted a good man as my ADC, and I rang up my regiment, 66 Armored Regiment, which I commanded, to say that, look, so-and-so officer His name was Segal, Arun Segal. Very nice officer. He was a captain, just become a captain. I said, I'd like him as my ADC, so please send him. But the commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Harpreet Sandhu at that time, whom I knew as his second lieutenant, he said, sir, I've only got 3 officers in the regiment. It's very difficult, and this man is doing my adjutant. I can't part with it. I said, all right, that's okay if you can't part with it. So since my regiment, 66, which I had commanded, was unable to provide me with the ADC, I went to my old regiment, 16 Light Cavalry. The moment I spoke to the CO, he said, General, whomever you want to name the man, we'll send him straight away. We'll bear the consequences ourselves if there is a problem in the regiment. So I decided to call a person called Bhalla. His name is SPS Bhalla. Must be Sher Pratap Singh Bhalla. He's a Shavan Sardar. And his elder brother, who had a big beard, was on my staff when I was BGS of Tuko and Sandhi Mandir. And I knew his father, who had been principal of a school in Dekshire, in the Kasoli Hills, you see. And I had visited that school as a BGS, as a brigadier, and I found that old Sardar gentleman very, very fine gentleman, running a good school. So I knew the family. I knew the elder brother. I said, this is the younger brother. He's in 16 Cavalry, so I'll get hold of him. So they sent him. So his nickname is Mike, M-I-K-E. So Mike Bhalla came as my ADC. And now I told Mike, I said, you ring up the ADC to the Chogyal. The Chogyal has his own Sikkimese setup. You ring up the ADC to Chogyal that the new general is in, and it's very sad that you haven't invited him for a drink or something. In other words, I've not permitted to call on him, but he sent me, if he sends me an invitation, I'm answering the invitation. That's a sort of roundabout way of doing the thing that you want to do. So sure enough, my ADC rang up the ADC, look, the new general is in, you haven't, the Chogyal hasn't invited him for a drink. So very next evening, the invitation to visit the Chogyal's palace for meeting him was sent. And so Srupi, my wife, and I got into our car and we landed up, and I was informed that, the procedure when you meet high dignitaries, all lamas, you carry a khata, that's a silk scarf. Have you experienced that? You carry a silk scarf with you, and it's your duty to put the silk scarf around the head,
Right.
as a matter of around the neck of the dignitary that you're meeting.
Yeah.
Because you consider yourself as a guest, shall I say, or an inferior, if you like, and you want to put the scarf on the horse neck or the superior's neck,
Right.
as your sign of respect.
Right.
So I had my khata ready, and I was sitting on the right side of the car, on the left side of the car. Shruti was on the right side. So my driver was on the right, so I sit on the left, the back. Shruti was on the right. And the car halted in such a way that she was the one who first got out. So the moment she got out, the Chogyal was standing there, and he put the khata around her head. Then when I came around the car, before I could put my khata around his head, he put his khata around my head. I said, look, Mr. P.T. Namjad, I am supposed to do this first. Why are you doing it first? He said, no, General, I have great respect for you because you have asked me to invite you, which nobody else has done. It's a great pleasure to have you in my palace, and therefore I receive you as a superior human being who is a guest. He's a very humble man. I just want to tell you about being humble.
Yeah. Yeah.
The saying is, Nivedita, I don't know if you have heard this before, the more higher you go, the more humble you must become. If you become a very senior official in the government or inside the military or civil services, or for that matter in the business world, the first sign of your dignity is humbleness. You don't get your position to go to your head. See, you don't bullshit other people, right? You're ready to lend a ear to anyone. That's a lesson, I think, which all of us have to learn in our life. You may be very rich, you may be very senior, but basically you're just a human being. so is the next man in the street. Basically, in the eyes of the Lord, if there is one, you're equal. There's no difference. So, you recollect that when Queen Elizabeth died recently, in her funeral, I don't know if you watched it, the Archbishop of Canterbury, after doing the full ceremony as the Queen, then a procedure comes and from the coffin, her crown is on top of the coffin, plus her the orb, plus the spectre, just the stick, golden stick, as indications of her authority as a queen. In the procedure, all these are removed and placed on the altar to be given to the next king, right? Then there is nothing in this coffin. Then the archbishop, who has been calling her our queen, says our sister Elizabeth is now going to be buried as a Christian soul.
Right.
So, I mean, one must accept that the pomp and show of high authority is only pomp and show. You must be humble. And I found that in the Chogyal, ex-Chogyal, a humble man. He told me when we went inside and we had a cup of Sikkimese tea. Now let me describe Sikkimese tea to you.
Right.
Very good tea. It's got yak milk inside it
Oh,
and a big lump of yak butter.
oh yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
very salty.
Right. I've had that. Yes, yes.
For a common Indian,
Yes.
with the tea gardens of Assam and Bengal, which you must be partaking of, and so do I, we are not used to that sort.
Right.
But for respect of your host, you have got to swallow it as best you can. You get used to it slowly. It's very salty, and it's full of good stuff. I mean, for high altitude areas, if you go anywhere in high altitude, the first thing you have to do is to have plenty of salt, plenty of sugar. But they don't put salt. They don't put sugar. They put salt
Right.
and plenty of milk and butter. Yak butter is very thick, by the way, and so is its milk. So anyway, we had this yak tea with him, and I found him a very nice man, and Srupi was very happy to meet him. Now you recollect that he had married a woman called Hope Cook. She's an American,
Right.
and he had gone to United States for some reason. He met this lady there. And you know what American women are? He's a Maharaja, something there. She patawed him and he married her. So she was the queen of Sikkim. She had two children. There was a daughter called Hopla, and there was a boy. And then when Indira Gandhi did her, uh, her little chess move, shall we call it, to produce democracy in Sikkim and reduce this man from king to a Mr. P.T. down here, Hope decided to leave it. She said, I married a king. I'm no longer going to stay with the mere
Wow.
citizen of Aizawl. See, I'm the citizen of Gangtok.
Right.
So she picked up the two children and she disappeared to America. New York, I think it was. So this chap requested for a couple of years that, look, these are my children and at least they should be allowed to come here and meet me, and or me allowed to come to America to meet them. She said nothing, remote law. So due to his legal advice, he took up a case in American courts against her, which he won. And having won, it was ordered by the courts that the children will have to be sent to him once a year, and he can also come to America to meet them once a year. So he did that. And so he told me that these two children are coming, and if you permit, I'd like to call on you in your Flagstaff house and bring my kids with me. So they'll be here in the next few weeks. I said, fine, you do that. It'll be a great pleasure to meet them. So I had the pleasure of meeting those children. I must tell you something about the Sikkimese. They are so humble and polite no matter what rank. If they sit in your house, they sit with their backs absolutely straight, their knees together, and their hands in their lap. And for anything that you say, they are bound. No matter how high they are. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's amongst the Bhutia population, not amongst the Nepalese. Okay. So now Hope Cook's children arrived. So Hopla was a young lady, so she was polite. But her younger brother, the big, thick-looking American, sitting with his knees wide apart and the shoulders out, as though he owned the place. So one straight away knew uh, the characteristics of these two children. But the girl asked me, she said, I'm very fond of shooting with a .22 gun. And there's no .22 ammunition available in Sikkim because the police or the military or the infantry units in Sikkim are not authorized. 0.22, 0.22 is a very small bore, 0.22 inches, right? It's a very thin thing. It's used in the cavalry units, armored corps units, because we have a sub-caliber firing practice range. And you don't fire the main gun, but you've got a small .22 rifle attached to the main gun and connected to your trigger, and you have little targets placed in front, and the gunner looks at those and fires a .22 round to hone his skills as a gunner before you take him out of the main ranges so that he doesn't waste expensive ammunition. So there was a tank regiment in North Bengal. So I rang them up. I said, sub .22 ammunition, so about 2,000 rounds were sent. They said, look here, you kindly send the empties back to us because those are accountable. So I gave them to Hopla and she used all those ammunition and empties were duly returned to the regiment. So with the result, she also honed her skills as a .22 rifle shot. Okay. So that is the Sikkim. Now a little more about the Sikkim ruler. Amongst these royal families, the elder son normally should become the Chogyal after the death of his father.
Right.
So this P.T. Damgyal had an elder brother. Now that elder brother was trained to be a king. Now I'll take you back to British history also. You see, before George VI took over in 1936, his elder brother was Edward, who became King Edward VIII, if you recollect. And he's the man who opened RIMC, my old school, in 1922 as the Prince of Wales. He became King Edward VIII, but he wanted to marry a Mrs. Simpson, who was a divorcee American, which was not accepted by the British court, nor by the British Parliament. So the then Prime Minister told him that this is not acceptable. So he said, but this is the woman I love, I want to marry her. So they said, no, but then you can't be king. So he resigned. He abdicated the throne. Right? If you recollect your history. Of course, later when the present King Charles III, when he married this lady and left Diana, I mean, nobody objected. She was another person's wife and he divorced her. So things change. Life changes as you go on. So the elder brother of P.T. Namgyal was trained to be king. He'd gone to America, had gone to England. He was a racing car driver. He was a pilot. He did all sorts of things because that's how a king is trained. He has to be master of all games. So he unfortunately died because when in Sikkim, I don't know if you've been to Sikkim, when you go north of Gangtok, you go to about 12,400 feet. There is a lake, high altitude lake, Shangu Lake.
Yes.
And where we had base units of our army because we were on the high hills, and in winter it's all frozen. So if ice is thick, you can walk over it, right? So he sent one of his chaps to go and check the ice is all right, stamp on it, he's okay. So he drove his car, heavy car, onto the ice, and the ice broke and he drowned. So his younger brother, P.T. Namgyal, was trained to be a monk. Because that's how the kings do. That the eldest brother becomes king, the others become monks in the various Sikkimese Gompas and so on. So the younger brother was trained to be a monk, a gentle human being who's praying to God all the time. Now when the elder brother died, he became the king. So that's his history. That's why he's there. I knew his son also, Prince Wanchuk, very humble and very nice people. Anyway, Sikkim, as you know, starts from the North Bengal Plains, which are a few hundred feet above sea level, and goes up in North Sikkim to heights of 22,000 feet, high mountains of Himalaya, 24,000 feet. Kanchenjunga is also 50% of it in Sikkim, 50% in Nepal. Kanchenjunga is the third highest mountain in the world. It's about 28,000 plus feet. It's after Mount Everest is the highest. Then the Mount Godwin Austen, which is in Pakistan, occupied Kashmir. And this is the third highest mountain in the world. So Kanchenjunga is also partly in Sikkim and considered a god. We have a large number of mountaineering expeditions going there, which we have. So Sikkim is a very interesting geography. It rises from the plains of 200 feet to 22,000. And you have the main river is Tista.
Yes.
The Tista flows down. In fact, there are two channels. One is the Tista and comes down to a place called Chungtang in the North Sikkim. And there, another tributary joins it. And then this all flows into North Bengal. And having gone through North Bengal, it enters Bangladesh, west of, joins the Brahmaputra, west of the Kasi Jantia Hills. See, it's a mighty river, right? So when you're driving up to Sikkim, the first hours driving, I would say, is a gentle rising of plains. Then you start climbing the hill till you reach Gangtok. Now, Gangtok is about 5,000 feet to 6,000 feet. My house was 5,600 feet or something like that. So the town is in the hills. And before you start this rise, there is a distillery in a place called Rangpo before the hill rise starts. And this distillery produces Sikkim wines, Sikkim brandy, Sikkim Scotch whiskey, right? Some of these whiskeys are very wide. And for my division, they produce a special rum, which is known as the Black Cat rum. This rum comes in a bottle, and on its label is a black cat. See, it's got the Sikkim Black Cat rum. And this Black Cat rum is sold at a special price to the division so that our Jawans can have their quota of rum, because that's a ration quota. And those officers who like rum, because rum, as you know, is liked by many people since it comes from blackstrap molasses. Blackstrap molasses is when you're boiling sugar cane to produce sugar, you produce all sorts of things with blackstrap molasses. If you boil it further and more impurities are removed, then it becomes shakkar and gur, right? And then you purify it with bones and it becomes white sugar.
Right.
White sugar is not healthy, but gur is supposed to be all right. And shakkar is supposed to be all right. Which are thing. And then before you get gur and shakkar, it's blackstrap molasses from which you produce rum. And so it's got all the goodies, the B complex vitamins, and it's considered good for health. It gives you a kick also. So they should have Black Cat rum. And the person who was the chief manager was a retired brigadier from the engineers. He's a great friend of my elder brother because he's an engineer. See? And I'll just give you his name. I'm trying to recollect it. But he halted my convoy when I was coming in at this place, gave me a cup of tea and said, "This I can put rum in the tea if you wish." I said, "No, that's all right. Tea is fine." And he wanted to make friends, and we became good friends. So he used to provide the liquor for my division. Now, the question of defense of India. Now here, these are the high mountain ranges of the Himalaya, which in North Sikkim are on our side of the border. Then we descend on the northern side to the Tibetan Plateau. We have about 25 kilometers of the Tibetan Plateau with us because that's the basin of the Tista. It has been accepted by Tibet earlier and now by China that the Tista River and its basin belongs to India. So since the Tista River rises in Tibet at a height of about, I would say, 17,000